Part 93. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 925. Galen clicked out the armor-piercing shells from his gun. He was leaning against the ruins of a wall on the first floor of the hospital. Except for him, everyone who entered the building had been killed. He pretended to be about to die, turned off the paging device in the micromecha, and at the same time lay on his back next to the ruins, using cold energy radiation to kill the mecha. Lowered to the point where there is no body temperature. The other party mainly relies on thermal energy to explore. As long as there is no temperature, people outside will not be able to find where he is. As long as the other party still wants to capture him alive, he has a glimmer of hope. The continuous violent and high-intensity movements, coupled with a highly tense spirit, made Garen completely exhausted at this time and consumed a lot of energy. My eyelids are getting heavier and heavier, and I feel as if I can't open them anymore, and they might fall down at any time and I won't be able to open them anymore. The entire hospital was riddled with holes, corpses, flames, bullets, and mecha fragments. A file room in the hospital not far away was smashed. The documents inside were slowly burning, and the papers inside were mixed with plastic and were slowly burning. It was charred black and emitting thick smoke. The whole hospital was filled with smoke that could not be seen, the high temperature burned the wooden furniture, and there were explosions from time to time. The ability of one person to annihilate dozens of micro-mecha soldiers is the power of Garen's own quality, which is more than 3 times the physical fitness of an average person, coupled with the special ability of the cold prison peacock kung fu. Combined with Garen's own powerful martial arts realm, he became a typical killing machine. Even the special martial arts masters in the army were not his enemies. Bang! Suddenly, the wall on the side of the first floor was punched through. The broken wall was shattered with rubble and powder, and several figures walked in slowly. The figure at the front has his right hand extended forward in a grasping gesture. Sun Ring. A golden halo spread from his feet and spread in all directions on the first floor. Just like ripples on the water, when the ripples hit a wall or something blocking it, they will automatically bounce back. Within a few seconds, the entire ground, walls, and ceiling of the first floor were covered with such golden ripples. Garen's heart trembled. He had no place to dodge and was hit by golden ripples everywhere. Almost at the same moment, he felt the man's eyes suddenly falling on him. Discovered. His heart was shocked, and he shot the man with a backhand shot. His body rolled to the ground, and his legs jumped up. Hand of the Hollow. Another female voice sounded out of thin air. A huge force fell on Garen from a distance, and it was like a big empty hand, grabbing him directly in the air. But immediately, the void hand was directly offset by a burst of cold energy radiation, and Garen leapt into the kitchen room of the hospital, and then there was no sound. The leader's body deflected, and a hole made by an armor-piercing bullet exploded in the wall on the left. For those in the expert group, it was commonplace to avoid such ballistics. Unless it's a powerful arc trajectory or refractory bullet, there's no way to hurt them. I'll use the Sun Ring to find him. You guys can do it separately, the leader said calmly. Do I need your advice? The woman in black behind her said coldly, walking into the hole in the wall and frowning at the billowing smoke inside. The wind of nothingness. She raised her hands, and an invisible strong wind floated slowly, forming a small gray-black tornado like a whirlwind in the hospital, quickly sucking away all the oxygen that could be burned. The flames were extinguished at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon all the smoke was gathered together by the tornado. It flew out from a hole in the blown wall, exploded directly, and slowly floated up and dissipated. Within a moment, the fire in the entire hospital was extinguished. As expected of a 5th-level resonance master, the resonance skill has reached this level, which is amazing. The leading man shrugged, not angry. The woman in black strode in unscrupulously, seemingly not caring about sneak attacks such as shootings or explosions. A total of 4 more people came in from the master group, all of whom had committed capital crimes and were retained by the military as powerful weapons of war and distributed to each legion. Most of them are level 5 masters, and a few are resonance pilots. However, because their own mechas were destroyed, they can only figure out a set of methods to use consciousness in single combat. These methods also have strong consciousness in practical combat skills. Under the influence, it formed a ferocious power that could interfere with the natural reality. Be careful, this guy was once a top level 5 pilot. The man saw that the woman ignored him and followed closely. The two walked together, side by side towards the kitchen on the first floor. The kitchen here is large and is used to prepare meals for patients, doctors, and nurses. There were some blackened and half-burnt white curtains hanging inside. I didn't know what they were used for. What did you mean by what you said when we were at Amano Gorge? The man walked beside the woman and asked in a low voice close to her ear. You mean whatever you say, the woman said coldly. That incident was not my fault. If you insist on blaming it on me, I can't help it. But can you please clarify the situation? The man said helplessly. What's going on? Haven't you already done everything? The woman gave him a cold look. I told you it was a misunderstanding. Before the man finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed, and he grabbed the woman's shoulders and pushed her to one side. Bang! A figure raised the curtain and rushed towards the woman. A blast of cold radiation burst out at the same time, pressing hard on the two of them, giving them a severe beating as they were about to activate their consciousness skills. Bang! The man was punched and knocked back several steps, while the woman was kicked in the abdomen by Garen. Nothingness. With a scream, a violent indiscriminate bombardment of consciousness erupted from the woman's body. With a bang, invisible fluctuations spread out in all directions with the woman as the center. The stone walls on the ground were directly blown up. The body of a miniature mecha soldier was also severely smashed away. All the curtains in the kitchen were torn apart. It cracked, and in the roaring wind, Garen's body felt like being hit by a train, and the rocket flew backwards. Large mouthfuls of blood spurted out from his mouth. Garen only felt that all the bones in his body were broken. In this impact, the serious injuries that had not been healed were aggravated again. He had relied on a large amount of consumption of potential points to barely suppress the movement of the injuries. Potential Dion could have quickly repaired his body, but the wind god that was dispersed by the explosion suppressed the remaining consciousness, resulting in only extremely slow healing of the injury. Coupled with the violent impact on consciousness now, he was even more injured. Lying on the ground, Garen could hardly move, his skin was cracked and almost no part of his body was intact. The whole person became a veritable bloody man, dying. The injuries in his body could no longer be suppressed, and his potential points could not offset the horrific damage of the two severe injuries, making him almost fall into coma. It's so dangerous. Is this guy really just a useless person with first-level consciousness? At this time, the two people who were still in shock recovered from the shock of the surprise attack just now. The two walked up to Garen and kicked him in the head. I'm almost out of breath, the woman frowned. Although she was kicked in the abdomen, because the explosion was timely and her body seemed to be quite strong, she didn't suffer too much force. Her face was just a little pale, but nothing else was serious. How to deal with it? Take him out and the interrogation experts will tell him everything we need, the man shrugged. His eyes fell on the body of the mini-mecha soldier that was knocked away beside him. To be honest, I'm very interested in how this guy killed so many people. He walked over and turned over the body with his feet, trying to find the fatal wound. Suddenly he let out a light sigh. No wounds were found on the body. What's even more weird is that the whole body seems to be an empty shell. Except for a layer of skin, everything inside seems to have been sucked dry. This feeling is like a spider preying on its prey. It first uses toxins to melt all the inside of the prey, and then blot it dry slowly, leaving only an empty shell. The man suddenly felt a chill in his heart. This was the first time he had seen this kind of killing method. "Let's go quickly," the woman whispered from behind. Okay, the man turned around, but his pupils suddenly shrank, and a sharp dagger pierced his heart. Chi! The dagger twisted deeper. The one who took action was a woman. She looked extremely weird at this time, her eyes were red, and the skin on her body was slowly covered with a layer of light gray transparent scales. She looked cold with a hint of fiery, as if suppressing a volcano that was about to erupt. Snow. The man stretched out his hand in a daze, wanting to touch the woman's face, but was twisted again by the dagger that pierced the heart, and the look in his eyes slowly dimmed. Plop! He fell on his back. Roar! The woman who had been mutated by the twisted seed let out an uncontrollable howl of pain. Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes, but as her body further mutated, the woman's entire body was gradually covered with thicker gray scales. Chi! A long spiked tail emerged from her back, which was a new limb that rapidly grew and mutated at the tail vertebrae. The already tyrannical half-moon level consciousness quickly increased due to the transformation of the twisted seed, doubling, and tripling. At the moment when she reached the peak of 3 times, the woman's entire figure had grown a lot bigger, and she opened a gray-white eye with a tear between her eyebrows. Go ahead. Kill. Kill everything you see. Garen, who was lying on the ground, sneered. A half-moon level master is parasitized by a twisted seed. How far can such terrifying strength be achieved? He was looking forward to it. With a whoosh, the woman disappeared from the spot. Not only her consciousness, but also her entire physical quality increased to 3 times its original level. This is the powerful and terrifying thing about the cold hell peacock technique. It does not mainly act on one's own mother body, but controls the twisted seeds that create chaos. It parasitizes on powerful creatures, greatly increasing their power to create killing and chaos. After the woman's mutated monster rushed out, the sound of large mechas falling and exploding was heard instantly. The crowd screamed and panicked everywhere. What? What the hell? Fire, fire! Roar! The woman made a terrifying scream from time to time. Garen didn't know what it meant to have a half-moon level master tripled, but he knew that now was his best chance to escape, and the chaos here would soon be suppressed. Even if a mutant is at the heritage level, it will be immediately suppressed by powerful pilots. Without sanity or intelligence, no matter how powerful it is just a beast without intelligence. It really only creates chaos. He put on the corpse equipment that he had devoured with the blue silk thread of the cold hell peacock and walked out of the hospital pretending to be a dying mecha soldier. The outside was already a mess, and the originally surrounding team had only corpses everywhere. After the woman mutated, her void consciousness was no less terrifying than the effect of driving a mecha with increased power. Coupled with the mutated and enhanced physical fitness, it was just a killing machine. In less than half a minute, the siege outside was completely defeated. The wind of nothingness swept everywhere, tearing a large number of mecha soldiers into pieces. There was still a living miniature mecha soldier on the ground nearby. He tried to get up from the pool of blood, but he shot his head off and lay down again. Garen took a few more shots and added 2 points of potential points to his physique at once. Now the wounds all over his body were violently fighting against the consumption of residual consciousness, slowly but surely healing the wounds on his body. This allowed him to barely regain some physical strength. Using the firearm as a crutch, Garen walked step by step towards a fallen large mecha. This mecha was in tatters and had been disfigured by the explosion. There was almost no intact part. It was definitely going to be sent away. Dumpster. Garen circled around the mecha, unable to suppress the fatigue in his heart any longer. He skillfully opened the empty missile launcher on the right thigh of the mecha and got directly into it. After closing the lid, he couldn't bear it anymore and slowly fell into a deep sleep. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 926. Hey, this way, yes. Throw it over. Several tow truck drivers control the robot arm of the vehicle to throw piles of garbage into the garbage mountain. At the edge of the garbage mountain outside Dawn City, trailers were dumping the remains of the terrorist attacks in the city into the garbage mountain. There is enough garbage of all kinds thrown in here every day. There are mountains of garbage waiting to be incinerated. The black trailer threw a dilapidated mecha into the metal garbage pile, turned around and drove away slowly. When the trailer was gone, the garbage mountain fell into silence. This is already a radiation belt. In the radiation belt on the edge of the domain, these garbage mountains are also the main source of income for the radiation people before they are incinerated. In order to occupy these garbage mountains, the towns near the Radiant Man even launched many small-scale armed fights. In the end, a town called Lion successfully took over the ownership of this place. The sky gradually turns from early morning to evening. Not far from the garbage mountain, a convoy of crude and rudimentary radiation workers gradually approaches on the horizon. The evening is the time when the radiation is at its smallest, and it is also the time when the radiation people are most active. The convoy is all black and gray, and most of them are motorcycles and trucks. Most of the people wearing leather jackets and pants, wearing windproof glasses, carrying ray guns and bullets and firearms on their backs, are tall and strong. Kids, look. It's the latest intradomain combat mecha. Ha ha ha. Now it's time to get something. A bald man in the lead laughed, and his face showed joy when he saw some of the newly added garbage in the garbage mountain. Expression. I hope there will be a complete life support cabin system. The life support cabin we built last time has been extremely damaged, a red-haired woman with a ponytail said calmly, holding a grass root in her mouth. Sister's habit of sleeping naked has not changed. Haha, someone in the motorcade joked with a smile. Come and hum me if you can, the red-haired woman pointed her middle finger behind her disdainfully. It's just rubbish if you just talk without practicing. Anyone who dares to hum my eldest sister is probably not born yet. Most of the convoy didn't take it seriously and left. Cut. The woman looked up at the garbage pile in the distance, her eyes scanning and landing on the most conspicuous mecha wreckage one by one. There seems to be quite a commotion in the domain this time. These are all mechas equipped by the Mechanical Legion, and they are so bad. The bald man also nodded. It doesn't look like it was destroyed by a firearm, it looks more like it was twisted and torn apart by some huge force. The convoy soon arrived at the mecha ruins beside the garbage mountain. Everyone began to get out of the car, put on power-increasing semi-robotic arms, and began to dismember the mecha's useful materials and parts one by one. The red-haired woman operated the robotic arm casually with a calm face, and quickly and skillfully disassembled some parts. Even the mechanical experts in the field would be amazed by the movement skills. But this skill is a powerful skill she has developed since she was a child in the radiation belt. These mechanical arms can not only be used to dismantle mechas, but more often, they are used to dismantle people. Her name is Dongpilan, she is the leader of the largest lion town near Dawn City, and Baldhead is her deputy. Whether it is skill or resourcefulness, they are far beyond the ability of ordinary radiation people without education and training. While Dongpilan skillfully dismantled the components, he observed the actions of other people around him, and from time to time gave pointers to his subordinates on the key skills. Scenes like this are very rare among radiation people. Compared with other towns, Lion Town is a rare group of radiation people who are extremely united. They are not many in number, but they are all very united. They share everything they have to eat and drink. In the radiation belt where life is like grass and food is more expensive than gold, it is simply a miracle. And all of this was brought about by leader Dongpilan. Dongpilan quickly disassembled the mecha parts while directing the actions of her subordinates. Suddenly, she hit her hand and seemed to hit some parts that could not be disassembled. After coming back to his senses, Dong Pilan glanced at the thing in front of him. It was thick, big, and completely black, like a large black wooden stake, with a thin slit for the missile launch chamber on the side. Thigh parts. Dong Pilan freed his hand from the robotic arm and reached out to touch the surface of this part. Suddenly, a bone-piercing chill spread from the parts, making her shiver violently. "Why is it so cold?" There was a hint of interest on her face. After disassembling the mechanical parts of the mecha for so long, she occasionally encountered some special missing powerful weapons like freezing bombs. Maybe this time it would be another one. An undiscovered freeze bomb. She thought for a while, and then tried to cut and disassemble the thigh part from the slit in the missile compartment, but unfortunately, the slit seemed to be frozen by a layer of surprisingly hard ice, making it impossible to cut it open. She simply picked up the entire part and threw it into her truck behind her. "This is mine, don't let anyone else touch it." "It may be dangerous," she warned, and continued to rummage through the trash. Not long after, the search was over and the convoy slowly left. About an hour later, a group of black mechs quickly flew out of the area, came to the garbage dump and began to inspect it carefully. "I told you, with so much garbage piled together, who knows when it was thrown in? How could there be someone hiding in the mecha wreckage? This is a mountain of garbage that will be incinerated soon." A mecha soldier, there were complaints inside. "Anyway, don't worry about it so much, just execute the order," another mech whispered. "This is an order from Sir Biochemist. Just don't let Sir Fella's people know about it." "I know." Several people began to carefully scan everywhere with the life detector made by the biochemist. Only a small part of the mecha wreckage that had been taken away by the convoy had been removed, and most of it was still here. Because the damage was so severe, it was impossible to tell whether it was still intact. "Tell me, why is the biochemist so worried about a disabled number?" "Who knows, but I heard that the patient itself seemed to have strong characteristics of a radioactive person, and the corpse is also of great research value." The group of people discussed and scanned. But he found nothing and could only return in despair. Inside a small stealth spacecraft in the distance. Biochemist B.A. Menjant frowned and stared here. "Did I guess wrong? Is that mutant really no Siwa?" He lowered his head and looked at the genetic test report, recalling that a mere injury could actually knock back his 5th level consciousness. That strange power made his heart a little hot. His intuition told him that if he could find someone with this power, the root cause, then he will truly embark on an unprecedentedly powerful path. He had already discovered something was wrong when he inspected the site. Although he suspected that there might be people hiding in the mecha wreckage, he did not say anything. Instead, he took the initiative to have the wreckage quickly dragged here. Unfortunately, Phyla delayed him for a while. "Ask about the situation, otherwise he might come here immediately." After the men of the scanning team left, he got off the ship himself, put on the scanning equipment, and scanned it himself. Nothing really was found. "It seems that the mutant is really the mutant of No Siwa." He breathed a sigh of relief, showing a hint of disappointment. "It's a pity that the person is missing. Once the gene collapses, all the genetic sequence information will become a mess. If you want to continue, finding something useful is as difficult as analyzing the composition of biological fluids from ashes." Disappointed, he had no choice but to turn back to the spacecraft and slowly leave here in the invisible spacecraft. "What? Missing?" Fella frowned and stared at the subordinate reporting in front of her. "It is said that it is probably the mutated powerful monster. Although we have not been able to find the corresponding genetic chain from that monster, the only explanation is that No Siwa turned into the crazy monster behind. Destroyed the entire encirclement and suppression team," the subordinate replied in a low voice. In the office, Phyla threw the pen in her hand into the pen holder, let go of a document in front of her, inserted her fingers into her hair and rubbed it. "So, how is that monster doing now?" "The troops were severely injured by the garrison general in black." They have already escaped into the radiation belt, but half of their bodies have been torn to pieces. I'm afraid they won't survive, his subordinate quickly replied, and judging from the reply of the general in black, that the monster has lost its mind and only knows how to cause chaos, kill people when it sees them, care about nothing, and sometimes even eat corpses. According to the test report of the geneticist who arrived later, the power of this monster is not endless. It relies on a large-scale one-time burning of the body's potential to explode, which is equivalent to burning life. According to the maintenance time of this intensity calculated, it can only survive for 4 days at most before its genes collapse and it dies completely. He continued. From Nanosawa's residence, we seized a large number of reserve general point cards, as well as some signed contracts for the purchase of colored lightstones and the refining and processing of fuel powder. There are also some good antique collections. In addition, there is a machine in the hangar, a squad leader level standard mecha. Where's the unfinished unique mecha at White Dragon Base? Phyla focused on this. The cheapest unique mecha would be many times more expensive than ordinary mechas. That's where the real value lies. They were taken over by people from the Black Annihilation section. Our people were blocked, the subordinate said helplessly. Forget it, let's end this matter. Even if a cripple doesn't die, there is no threat. Phyla waved her subordinates to leave. After his subordinates left, he sat in his seat, looked at the half-processed information, then picked up a projection tablet, projected a virtual keyboard, and quickly started typing on it. Soon the computer page entered a colorful pornographic website. As he continued to click randomly, the page gradually disappeared and turned black, and then a white-haired old man with a cold face was displayed. The plan has almost been arranged. Everything is ready and waiting for your order, Phyla said respectfully in a low voice. Has the penetration been completed? The old man asked in a low voice. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 927. I have spent more than 10 days working here to figure out the specific movements and whereabouts. I just sorted it out just now, Phyla answered as she picked up the seemingly ordinary document from before. During this period, his main work was dealing with the large-scale preparations for this operation. He devoted himself to it almost day and night. He even went to see the operation he planned to encircle and suppress Nonosiwa, only to see half of it and then come back to continue. Already working. The Ice Dragon, Dark Light, me, and Thorns are all deployed in place, and sniping can be carried out at any time. Phyla nodded in reply. Pay attention to his movements. That person has always been famous for doing whatever he wants, the old man warned. We will, intelligence is my expertise, don't worry, Phyla replied affirmatively. That's good, the white-haired old man nodded heavily, and the screen suddenly closed. The page returned to its original porn website. Philadelphia closed the web page and began to check every step and every detail of its arrangement again. There is no room for error in this plan. We have been preparing for so many years just to work hard for this explosion. Cosmic Calendar Year 11527, August 25th. A major event happened that shocked the realms. Under the delicate stalemate that had been at peace for so long, Black Star Diofi, the chief genius of the Black Pan domain, came forward to challenge Zero Gun Swana, the number one master in the Maria domain. The two faced off in the Red Star Canyon, a dangerous area of the famous radiation belt. The terrifying strength of the inheritance level fully doubled the size of the entire Red Star Canyon, and the result was even more shocking. Black Star Diofi and Swana both disappeared and their whereabouts are unknown. The troops who went to investigate could not find any trace. The Black Pan domain was furious, and the Maria domain was also shocked. Losing a top genius like the first chief was an unbearable pain even for two powerful domains. The public opinion circles in both domains issued statements, accusing the other party of being the mastermind of the conspiracy in this duel, and that the power involved in causing the disappearance of inheritance-level masters was definitely beyond the control of ordinary people. The friction in the border radiation belt between the two domains gradually heated up, and as the friction and conflict between ordinary soldiers from both sides who respected Black Star and Zero Gun continued to escalate, both domains began to increase their troops at the border as a last resort. The situation is getting increasingly tense. Under such a situation, a new generation of young people in the Black Disk domain emerged. Metro, Kafi, and Nanlissus were promoted to the inheritance level at the same time, becoming the new pillars of the young generation in the Black Disk domain. At this time, 2 months had passed since Nono Siwa was besieged and suppressed. His family had been notified of his crime of collaborating with the enemy and treason, and all the property and resources in his name had been confiscated. And the Nono Siwa family, which was originally prosperous, suddenly fell from heaven into the abyss. Black Disk Extraterrestrial Radiation Belt, Lion Town. The town is very weird. There are huge black stones everywhere. People live inside these strange-shaped boulders. There are spaces hollowed out with special tools. As houses, they are warm in winter and cool in summer. Some stones are mostly buried underground and can be used as basements. One of the largest black stones is carved into the town symbol, a lion. That is also the residence of Dongpilan, the leader of the town. At this early morning, the town's hunting and gathering teams drove motorcycles and trucks quickly out of the defensive metal gate and drove towards the distance. Every day they go to the nearby radiation lake to hunt mutant fish, which is the largest source of food for the radiation people. They also occasionally collect some delicious mutant fruits that make people appetizing. Although eating them has some hallucinogenic effects, it is also one of the few forms of entertainment in the town besides playing cards and chess. The collection team is to collect a large number of energy collectors placed outside in advance. These collectors can collect light energy and wind energy, and rush into the empty energy blocks to become usable energy again. At the same time, it also plays the role of patrolling the territory. The territory of Lion Town is centered on this town, with a radius of 20 kilometers nearby. Dongpilan stood in front of the hollow window on the second floor of her home, looking at the fleet of vehicles in the distance, and exhaled. She had long messy red hair and was only wearing a thin white translucent pajamas, with her bare shoulders exposed. There is a radiation mark in the shape of a lion. Like the dark lion tattoo, this is also the fundamental source of the name of her town. It seemed that he didn't sleep very well last night. Dongpilan yawned, turned around and walked to his bedroom. Her bedroom was completely different from an average woman's bedroom. In addition to the bed, the small room was filled with oil stains, parts, mechanical tools, and half-assembled messy parts and instruments. Throughout the room, the woman's body odor mixed with the strong smell of engine oil and lubricants, forming a strange and strong smell. Dongpilan's parents are both radioactive people. She has never entered the domain. She has grown up listening to stories about the domain since she was a child, so she found a location close to the domain as her base. With her strong skills and good mechanical skills, she gathered a group of people and at the same time used the parts in the garbage dump to build a water purification device that is now used in the town. This water purification instrument, which everyone calls Eve, can purify radiated water to a level of 10% radioactivity, which is considered a very good technology in the radiation belt. And she relied on her good mechanical skills to build a strong automatic defense for the town, and also trained a group of maintenance personnel with the same skills. This has also become the foundation of Lion Town. It's been so many years. In a blink of an eye Dongpilan scratched his hair, picked up a mirror, and looked at the pretty women's faces in the mirror. They were not as tough and wild as his subordinates thought, but more of a strong sense of aura. Exhausted. She is only 19 years old, but in the radiation belt, she has learned to be independent and self-reliant since she was 5 years old. She was almost raped when she was 10 years old and poisoned 32 people. At the age of 13, she was already following a machine with evil intentions. The teacher deceived him into getting the technology he wanted, and then quickly fled. At the age of 16, he was already an executioner with at least hundreds of lives on his hands. In the radiation belt, it is impossible to survive if you are not ruthless enough. This is the truth. This kind of life is really boring. Dong Pilan shook his head and shook off some hesitant and useless thoughts. Picking up an electromagnetic wave detection instrument nearby, she walked to a corner of the room, where the mecha thigh she moved back last time was placed. The nearly 2-meter-long thigh part was completely black, and naturally gave off a faint chill. Radiation, this is a change that has only begun to occur gradually during this period, which also makes Dong Pilan feel more and more mysterious. She tried many methods to open the missile launch chamber of the thigh part, but to no avail. Even the large cutting machine could not open it with desperate cuts. The hardness of this part seems to have far exceeded the original hardness index. Picking up the tool, she began to carefully examine the sensitive points with different electromagnetic field distributions on it. By testing the sensitive points and using several other tests combined, she could calculate where the weakest point on the entire surface of the component was, and then targeted it. Use your strength and you will get twice the result with half the effort. However, as she continued to research during this period, she discovered a strange pattern in the freezing air in this component. That is, when the nutrient solution of the survival cabin was accidentally dropped on this component, the radiation parameter monitor that had been detecting this component suddenly reacted. She found that the radiation concentration on the surface of this component was actually slightly larger by 0.1 standard amount. Reacting to the nutrient solution, she stood up and touched her chin. Let's see today how big the reaction can be. She reached for a bottle of low-grade nutrient solution that had such a high concentration of radiation that the irradiated people did not dare to eat it. She opened the bottle cap and saw a thick, gray-white nutrient solution that was as thick as milk sauce. It dripped out and fell on it. The middle of the mecha's thigh part. A strange scene happened. The surface of the component actually had a faint hint of blue, especially around the parts where the nutrient solution was dripped. The blue was the most obvious. Dong Pilan lowered his body and came closer. It can be clearly seen that the surface of the component is faintly exuding a faint white cold air, and at the same time it is slowly absorbing the nutrient solution on the surface like a sponge. High concentration radiation nutrient solution is highly toxic to radiated people, but it seems to have no effect on it at all. This made Dong Pilan wonder. Doo-doo. The radiation equipment nearby started beeping again. She reached out and took it over and looked at it. The temperature on it had increased again. From the first time to now, the amount of radiation has increased by 15 times. But the strange thing is that this cold energy radiation only converges in a space less than half a meter around the component. Tisk tisk. Dong Pilan was completely helpless. Explain this phenomenon. Looking at the thigh parts that had quickly absorbed the nutrient solution, a crazy idea suddenly came to her mind. She looked at the large bottle of nutrient solution in her hand. Since you want to eat this, I want to see how much you can eat. There was a trace of curiosity at the corner of her mouth. She unscrewed the cap, and put the bottle of nutrient solution directly on the thigh part. Silently, the nutrient solution continued to flow out again, but it did not flow far before it was completely absorbed by the mecha components. Dong Pilan was too lazy to care about this thing anymore. She recorded the radiation readings at this time. She turned and left the bedroom. There were still many things that needed her to deal with in the territory every day. She couldn't just stick to her hobbies all the time. And inside the parts she couldn't see, in the dark space, Garen was curled up inside. His body, which was originally as shriveled as a mummy due to his severe injuries, was now frantically pouring out thin blue silk threads, connected to the inner wall of the thigh part, and continuously absorbed through the part. The radiation nutrient solution outside. As the nutrient solution continued to be absorbed, Garen's body gradually began to wake up from its deep sleep. In his body, the potential energy is still entangled and fighting against the remaining inheritance-level blue consciousness, and the power of the secret martial arts is slowly devouring the nutrient solution, quietly growing, and is growing in a kind of way. Garen's physical injuries were repaired at an extremely slow speed. Galleon, who was already on the verge of death, finally received a little replenishment under the nourishment of the nutrient solution. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 928. Far away from Lion Town, on an abandoned road between remote mountains. At this time, groups of short-braided men riding red motorcycles were yelling and making strange noises, waving the metal chains in their hands, and constantly swinging them into black shadows hovering above their heads. Woo! Discovered a new town, ha ha ha. Looks like there's new food. Eat it! Eat it! Eat it, someone yelled. On the motorcycle leading the team, there was a man with the longest whip on the back of his head. His eyes were slightly swollen and his skin was pale. Strangely, the whip behind his hair was different from the others. The black whip actually twisted automatically like a living creature, crawling slowly around his neck. I haven't eaten for 5 days, I'm so hungry, the leader of the men said in a low voice. The motorcycles that the group of people were riding slowly rushed towards a small town in front of them. That town was a nearby town that had always been in competition with Lion Town, Vulture Town. The leader of the town is a strong and proud man with outstanding skills in heavy artillery. The pig caught yesterday said that there are a total of 5 towns in the area ahead. They all rely on garbage mountains to live. They have a large population, at least 200 to 300 people. It seems that we can have a good meal again. Come on, a motorcycle came up quickly from the side, screaming and laughing with the leader. Kill the town in front first, the leader raised his right hand high, his fingers as red as blood, sharp and slender, like 5 sharp little daggers. Go forward, he roared violently, and a powerful sound wave surged out of his throat, causing the entire road ground around him to tremble violently. In the distant town under the morning sun, on the observation deck, a sentry quickly rang the electronic alarm clock. The beeping sirens continued to spread from the town in all directions. The gathering and hunting teams that were still working outside quickly returned. The town was in a state of hustle and bustle. The leader, a strong man with short hair, was quickly climbing up to the only observation tower, taking the electronic telescope and looking over here. It's a hunter, the strong man said in a low voice. Human hunters. Aren't they always active in the northeast? Why did they suddenly come here? The deputy next to him was startled and asked hurriedly. Perhaps there is some trouble over there, or it may be for other reasons. These monsters are everywhere, so it is not surprising to come here. The strong man threw the telescope to the deputy. See for yourself. He turned around and looked at the dozen or so young and middle-aged men in the town who had begun preparing for battle. Ready to fight. Ouch. The people below raised their guns and knives in response. Boss, we have never fought a human hunter before. Do we need to find people from other towns for support? The deputy felt a little uncertain. What are you afraid of? I'm here, the strong man glanced at him and said a little contemptuously. Human hunters are a unique race of people in the radiation belt. They are a type of infected people who mutate from the radiation disease. They like to eat human flesh raw. They have a ferocious and bloody temperament and are powerful. However, most of their personalities are affected by the instinctive desire to eat, and thus become. He was reduced to a ball of paste, and he only knew how to attack by instinct, but he didn't quite understand the more complicated logic and operations. In the radiation belt, the number of human hunters is the largest. Everywhere, people who were driven out of the area were infected with radiation sickness and became human hunters. This proportion can generally account for 60%, and the rest are either dead or dead. It is relatively rare for someone who becomes a target of exploitation to survive and still be a normal human being. The most cruel thing is that the lifespan of human hunters is not long, only 5 or 6 years, but their fecundity is very terrifying, comparable to that of spiders. One litter can give birth to 5, 6, 7, or 8, or even more than 10 individuals. And once they become human hunters, they will be infected with powerful germs, enough to infect a normal radioactive person into the same low-level human hunter in a short period of time. This is the scariest place. Reproductive power, coupled with pollution, is also the key to human hunting being able to become stronger and stronger in this era of technological mass murder. In fact, they are the most numerous people in the radiation belt. Most of the normal radiation people build defense systems, not only to resist the ubiquitous threat of mutant beasts and insects, but mainly to prevent them. The terrifying fecundity and tyrannical bodies of human hunters make them like locusts in radiation belts. In recent years, they have increased in number and occupied an increasingly larger area. Boom! A heavy artillery shot was fired from the town, hitting hard not far in front of the manhunting convoy. The huge impact and explosion force overturned the abandoned road, and hit the head and body of Renchow with the flying cement stones. It actually only made small wounds, and then it was unable to bounce away. The leading men's faces were covered with blood, and they wiped their faces ferociously. They howled louder and looked at the town in the distance with more ferocious eyes. Kill! Eat! A group of people yelled, and some even knew how to pronounce a few simple words. The entire human hunting team consisted of more than 20 people, forming two long snakes and rushing toward the town at high speed. Boom! Another long-distance heavy artillery hit, causing rocks and soil to fly across the ground. A man was blown up on the spot, his flesh and blood turned into sauce foam, and the battle began. Lion Town. Dong Pilan looked down at the sand table model in front of him. The two deputies were squatting beside her, staring at the sand table with frowns as well. The three of them are the highest combat power in the entire Lion Town. Both deputies are second-level consciousness experts, while Dong Pilan herself is a third-level expert, which is one of the key reasons why she can become the leader of Lion Town. Aja, who was on sentry duty, came over earlier to report that he saw traces of Manshao in the northeast. I didn't believe it yet. Unexpectedly, Xiaodong came again just now. They got specific photos of Manshao rushing towards Vulture Town. It was almost they were discovered by the hunter at 1 o'clock. Once discovered by these monsters, these little kids will definitely not be able to come back, Deputy Custer said in a low and solemn voice. How many people are there specifically? Dong Pilan stretched out his index finger and bit it slowly in his mouth. At least 20 or so, look at the photo, Custer replied. The other deputy, Mei Long, is an older man with a big beard, and there is a hint of white in the beard. I once encountered a human hunter in a small town in the east. They are very crazy and very strong. The strongest ones can even fight against some powerful mutant beasts, but their lifespan is short. The most troublesome thing is that the human hunter likes to feed on human flesh. There is no way to negotiate and solve the problem. We can only kill. How is the combat effectiveness? Custer asked. It's very difficult to deal with, but as long as there are no level 2 human hunters, there is no big problem with other ordinary level 1 hunters. They are all afraid of firearms, but the quantity must be paid attention to. Mainly, the level 2 or above human hunters have the ability to harden their skin. Generally, firearms it was only a minor injury, except for heavy artillery, it can't be killed at all, Mei Long said helplessly. I still shudder when I think of that manhunting attack on the city. Do you think Vulture Town can be defended? Dong Pilan asked in a low voice. I don't know, Mei Long shook his head. It should be okay if there are no level 2 human hunters. If there are, I'm afraid we have to be prepared to face a large number of human hunters. They contaminate the environment very quickly. These words caused both Dongpelin and Custer to shiver. I hope Vulture Town can hold on. Dongpilan stood up, immediately let people send out drones to monitor Vulture Town. It doesn't matter if the energy blocks are consumed a little, now is not the time to save. Okay, I'll make arrangements right away, Mei Long nodded. Also check everyone's weapon reserves, how many energy blocks are in stock, how many bullets are in stock, and send a few more people to the processing workshop. There is only one automatic bullet production line in the processing workshop. We can't increase the output even if we send people there. We can only produce 2,000 rounds of bullets every day. The energy blocks are quite sufficient, but I'm worried that the ray gun is not powerful enough. Mei Long, he smiled bitterly. We can't let everyone use knives to fight with humans, right? Dongpilan was also a little annoyed. What about the other towns? Custer asked in a low voice. If it's really difficult, let's withdraw. Withdraw, Dongpilan was also thinking about this issue. With the old encyclopedia Mei Long here, they all have a very clear understanding of the strength of the human hunters. As long as there is one second-level human hunter among the more than 20 human hunters, this group of people will be really in trouble. The second-level human hunter, in fact, it is equivalent to the powerful combat effectiveness of a second-level fully armed pilot driving a standard mecha. Although this is only a theoretical comparison, the second-level pilot is definitely stronger than the second-level human hunter, but this also illustrates how powerful and difficult it is in disguise. While the three of them were hesitating, the simple pager on Custer's waist rang again. Uncle Custer, another hunter has appeared. There was a somewhat chaotic call from the other side. So many. So many. Run. Go back to town. Oh my God. There are at least 50 or 60 people. A chaotic mix of human voices made the faces of the three of them look increasingly grim. What's going on? Tell me, Custer yelled. Everywhere, all around town. All around town. Oh my God, the man holding the pager shouted back. Run. The three of them quickly ran out of the room, climbed onto the only observation deck, and looked into the distance. At this sight, the three of them were completely shocked. I saw densely packed groups of people hunting everywhere around the town. They all had swollen eyes, pale skin, and black hair and short braids on the back of their heads. All of them are agile and vigorous. Some mouths were still dripping with sticky and disgusting saliva. The hunting and gathering teams around Liontown all returned. A team of about 30 people in total quickly poured into the town, and soon, the four-sided defense system of Liontown, built like a war fortress, was quickly activated. The steel gates fell hard and hit the ground. The entire town soon formed a cylindrical black and gray fortress. The walls and gates were made of alloy as thick as a hand. 30 young adults above the wall picked up their weapons and stood up, looking down the wall. Many people looked nervous, but most of them had natural expressions. Although they had never been in contact with human hunters, they had experienced many battles and were very confident in the guys in their hands. The expressions of the three leaders standing calmly and confidently on the observation deck also infected them and gave them confidence. Free attack, Dongpilan raised his hand and shouted with the loudspeaker handed by his deputy in one hand. Bang bang bang. A series of gunshots began. Several human hunters were knocked to the ground, with blood streaming from their heads. These hunters seemed to have no leader, and were not very hungry. They were just wandering around in a daze. At this time, they were forced by the gun and stopped immediately. The whole town was surrounded by a circle. Woo! Suddenly, there was a violent and high-pitched whistling sound in the distance, which seemed to be the howl of a human hunter. It's a second-level human hunter. Mei Long's face changed slightly and he whispered. Dongpelin and Custer also felt that the problem was difficult. What to do? Custer looked at Dongpilan. How fast are humans hunting? Dongpi Lan asked in a low voice. Soon, we probably won't be able to escape. Mei Long shook his head. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 929. Then prepare with all your strength, see if they can't get through. Dongpi Lan had a ruthless look on his face. We have guns and defenses, and our food reserves should last for 2 weeks. I don't believe they can surround us for that long. The two deputies nodded, went down and quickly began to inspect possible defense loopholes around the town. Divide the people who came up to defend into 2 groups, with 15 people in each group dispersed, while the other group went back to rest. Soon, the people outside were running towards the direction of the sound. After a while, they were as fast as a car, and soon they disappeared on the horizon. This also made the people in the town breathe a sigh of relief. But only Dongpi Lan saw it with a telescope. There were people all around in the distance staring at this place. We are being targeted by them. She understood clearly in her mind that although the human hunter was not very intelligent, he still had some logical IQ. At least we can make simple arrangements. She had also seen the speed of the people hunting just now. If they left the town where they were stationed, they would be overtaken in no time. Without defense, they would have no power to resist at that time. It seems we can only hold on. A deep sense of crisis surged into her heart. What she didn't know was that not only here, but also in the entire radiation, wherever there were cracks in the ground, a large number of human hunting monsters were constantly pouring out. They kill people when they see them and destroy towns when they see them. Like wild dogs in the wilderness, the once-in-a-100-year human hunting wave broke out in advance, which no one expected. This is a disaster that only occurs in radiation belts. In each major domain, isolation shields slowly rise one by one, completely cutting off the communication between the domain and the radiation belt. Each domain is like an island in the sea, standing in the radiation belt. Some of the outposts in the white light and black disk domains also withdrew their personnel and all returned to the territory. The reason why the domain is powerful but does not expand everywhere, allowing the radiant people to enjoy the mineral deposits in many places, allowing them to dig them out and then trade them to the caravans coming out of the domain, is also for this reason. Their strength is only enough to hold on to this point in the wave of human hunting. Scope. It's not that they don't want to expand, but the outbreak of the human hunting wave that most people in the area don't know about will cause them to experience terrifying pressure that increases geometrically every time they expand a little bit. On the entire surface of the mother star, each domain, including the Central Academy, as well as a large number of domains in the 4 major areas of southeast, northwest, and north that are distributed around the center like stars, are surrounded by countless human hunters. Most of the strongholds in the radiation belt live in retreat. This kind of hunting wave will last all day long and will not retreat until night falls. Every day. Only half a day also gave the radiation people hope for life. Night falls quietly. Although it was quiet all day during the day, the nervous fatigue consumed Dongpi Lan greatly. She has always had to be at the forefront to stabilize everyone's hearts so as not to cause chaos in the town. As the most powerful radioactive person in the town, if even she is shaken, the entire town will collapse. Returning to the bedroom, she glanced at the thigh component in the corner. The entire bottle of nutrient solution upside down on it had been completely absorbed, leaving only a gray hard shell covering the surface of the component. That was when the nutrient solution had been absorbed. Finally, the remaining impurities remain. Has it really been absorbed? Dongpi Lan walked over in surprise, picked up the bottle, and looked at the mouth of the bottle. Sure enough, it was empty, with nothing in it. Anyway, this kind of highly radioactive nutrient solution was used to grow flowers and plants in the past. There are so many of them, I want to see how much you can absorb. Dongpi Lan walked out of the bedroom and asked someone to take more than 10 bottles of waste nutrients. Liquid comes. All of them were placed upside down on the surface of the thigh part. Suddenly, the surface of the component was covered with a clear blue color, and the nutrient solution in the bottle dried quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye. Tisk, Tisk Dongpilan's curiosity became more and more intense. She had seen all kinds of radiation-mutated beasts in the radiation belt since she was a child, and she had never seen such changes before. And just inside the parts she couldn't see, Garen's crouched body has returned to a normal human figure. His eyes moved slightly, and he seemed to have some consciousness. What is strange is that the two energy master marks suspended behind him slowly light up at this time. The mechanic master's key on Garen's body, which had not yet been shattered, began to ripple slightly. The qualification of the second-level energy mechanic has been verified and confirmed. Do you want to participate in the nearby supernatural space trading market? A subtle wave of consciousness asked Garen. A market for skilled mechanics. Garen had just woken up from his coma when he heard such a question. Join in. Confirmation is complete, the separation of consciousness begins, and the supernatural space is entering. When Garen just woke up and opened his eyes, he suddenly saw that the surrounding area was suddenly dark, and then he soon seemed to have entered a rainbow-like cylindrical tunnel and flew upwards quickly. Not long after, the end of the tunnel appeared, a round mouth glowing with white light. Flying out suddenly, Garen blocked his eyes for a moment to let them adapt to the sudden change in light. He was in the same square as he had been last time. But this square is slightly different. The ground is made of white jade, and the fountain in the middle is a white dolphin leaping high without any support below. It seems to be suspended anti-gravity technology. There are not many shops surrounding the square, only 5 or 6. So that the whole square seems smaller. Galen. Suddenly a woman's voice came from not far away. Garen looked up and saw Xylan running over quickly with a haggard look on his face. There were not many people around except them. 20 or 30 people at most. Some magicians squatted on the stalls and communicated silently with the stall owners. Some people stood there and seemed to be searching for something. There were also people standing together in 2s and 3s, talking quietly. Xylan came over quickly without attracting anyone's attention. She ran over in a few steps. He grabbed Garen and walked towards the corner. Don't worry, only you can hear my voice, Xylan said loudly, the expression of joy on his face undisguised. I knew you were still alive. I also thought I was going to die. Garen shook his head helplessly. It's such bad luck. The fight between the two factions directly implicated me. This may be the disadvantage of Mushiu Yulin. Mushiu Yulin? What a metaphor. Xylan nodded, his eye circles a little red. I have been waiting for you here for more than 10 days. The human hunting wave broke out. The supernatural space is the only place where energy masters can exchange and trade items. Moreover, this place is completely disconnected from the major domains. The domain's influence is very small here, so even if you are wanted, no one here will pay attention to you. The heinous mechanic masters are just equal members here. As long as they do not violate the agreement and laws of the Mechanic Masters Alliance, nothing from the outside world can be brought here. That's good. Garen also breathed a sigh of relief. Recalling what happened this time, he didn't expect that teacher Fanduo would give up on him after all, and their opponent, Fengshen General, would never allow Fanduo's faction to have another powerful genius appear, so they took the opportunity to attack, and the result was that they were weaker. Fanduo retreated. A dead and crippled genius is not called a genius. This may be the key to Fanduo giving up in the end. Where are you now? If you need any help, please come as soon as possible. I went to the Aurora domain. The protective shield here has not been completely closed. You must have escaped from the domain, right? Xylan asked quickly. How do you know? Garen said in surprise. The mechanic master key on your body has a weak signal here. Except for me, no one knows that you have obtained this and entered the supernatural space, so I can probably sense your vague location. Xylan answered quickly. She looked around, looking a little nervous. Listen, I can't do anything about most of your things. I tried my best to get the unique mecha, but I still couldn't get it, and it was taken away by Phyla. And I hid some of the rest of this Heinenge mine for you in advance. There is another one, your biochemical pool preparation materials, only Mila cells, I have hidden them for you in advance, and the other rare materials you have collected in the past 2 years were all taken away by your teacher Fan Duo. Yes, if you want the Mila cells, I can send them to you right away before the wave of people hunts breaks out in the air area. Did Van Duo take it away? Garen was slightly startled. You don't believe it, Xylan also showed a hint of sarcasm. When you were unlucky, your teacher immediately sent someone to your public residence and searched through it to get your technical information on refining the colored lightstone. Unfortunately, he couldn't find it. He thought he was concealed enough. Okay, but you don't know that I will arrange for someone to be at your place at any time. Garen remained silent. Now I am also being monitored by them. I don't have much time. Not only the family, but also people from your teacher have come several times and asked me to hand over your technical information. Haha, Xylan laughed sarcastically. There is no movement at Phyla's side now. Instead, your teacher Fanduo sent people to guard my side all day long. He also did it in your house. Phyla doesn't even bother to do anything to your family. Garen was silent for a moment before asking. What happened to my family? She was detained. Your sister was caught and sent to Fanduo. I don't know what she did. I went over as quickly as possible to take her out, but it seemed that she had been given some medicine and became a little confused. Ask whatever you want. After the examination, it was found that it was an extremely powerful mantra potion, and the brain may have been damaged. I have already arranged for surgery to recover. But your parents' company has been closed, and their whereabouts are unknown. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to them, Xylan said firmly in a low voice. Garen took a deep breath. Although he had no feelings for Nanosawa's family in this world, he was the one who brought this disaster to them after all. Thank you, he patted Xylan's shoulder vigorously. What are you going to do? Xylan asked worriedly. Don't be impulsive. You can't fight them. Don't worry, if I can't be a pilot, I still have the path to become a mechanic. There was a cold glint in Garen's eyes. The seventh wind god general, Fan Duo, and Phyla. In fact, he didn't blame the wind god general and Phyla. As enemies, it was normal to use any method to deal with the enemy. What is sad for him is that as his teacher, Fan Duo did not teach him any important knowledge. Blackwind's knowledge is also something that everyone in the Black Annihilation sect knows. However, in the end, he was defeated because of the struggle between the two sections and became a victim, an exchange of interests. In the end, the one who benefited the most was Fan Duo himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 930. Although Fan Duo actually made some efforts and asked the inheritance class to dispatch to protect him, as his genius disciple was killed and crippled by the hostile forces, even if there would be compensation and balance within the Black Annihilation sect, what he would get would definitely not be the same. It would be this. Compared with the harvest, Fan Duo has already gained enough. But he is still not satisfied, and in the end he continues to do evil things to the end. Don't worry, I will go back sooner or later, Garen whispered. As a top martial arts master, he would naturally not give up just because of this setback. Whenever do you want Myra cells? I'll send an aircraft to a location, Xylan whispered. Garen also knew that the situation was troublesome. Other materials for building biochemical pools were easy to find in the radiation belts, but Mila cells were the only ones that were rare and precious. They were not easy to find. I'm outside the radiation belt now. I don't know exactly where I am. I just woke up from my coma. Then I will release the cells with a drone and wander in the sky in your direction. I will give you a code to receive the signal. If the drone arrives at your place, you can use this code to open it and get the things. If it weren't for this code, the thing would self-destruct. Xylan took out a small black box, which looked about the same size as a matchbox and seemed to be a metal block. This is an automatic signal transmitter. It is used to locate the drone. It allows your mechanic key to automatically send out a signal. Destroy the item immediately after you get it. Remember. Be careful. Yes, I understand. Garen knew that in the Black Disk territory, the only one who still supported him might be Xylan. This girl, who is like a master, apprentice, and good friend to him, is now facing pressure that ordinary people cannot imagine. You have to be careful too, he patted Xylan on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'll be fine, Xylan smiled, but it seemed a little forced. Okay, I have to leave first. Otherwise, if they find out, they may send a master mechanic in to monitor me. Remember, the password is. Take care. Kindness. Watching Xylan slowly fade away in front of him, Garen felt a little empty, as if he was the only one left in the world. Suddenly he thought of Klin, Burin, and the mysterious Gu. Perhaps they had now officially embarked on their own path. Looking around, most of the energy masters around were communicating with others silently, which seemed different from the last time. Moreover, the appearance of many of these energy mechanics is not as refined and clean as the people in the area, but more like the radiation people in the radiation belt. Can a person with radiation also become a weapon master? Garen had this doubt in his mind. He randomly found a shop and walked in. The rows of counters inside are no different from ordinary shopping stores. Several customers were wandering around inside, and some were negotiating prices with the pretty female shop assistant. No one paid attention to Garen when he came in. He casually looked at the contents of the glass counter. There are dark blue tree roots, red stones, and black things that are half grass and half worms. There were broken metal nameplates and even what looked like biological fingernails. The names above are also weird. Tears of the Sun, Wind Gauntlets, Solid Stone, Gorgeous Roots, Crab Legs. What do you need? Someone came over and asked. Garen looked up and saw a pretty young female clerk. This is my first time entering the supernatural space. I wonder what is the main payment currency used here. The spar used here is an energy stone. To be precise, it is an energy crystal. The spar is also a universal currency in the universe. One crystal can be exchanged for 100,000 home planet universal points. The female clerk replied friendly. Are you also a magician? Garen asked slightly curiously. Hearing that Xylan said that real objects can even be brought out directly here, he became more and more curious about this supernatural space. However, if real objects can really be brought out, then the price will definitely be high, otherwise Xylan will not take the risk. Let the drone bring the item out instead of choosing to exchange it directly here. Sorry, none of us clerks are mechanics. We are ordinary people hired by the Mechanics Alliance. The clerk shook his head and smiled, without any impatience at all. How do you earn crystal stones? Garen asked again. Spars can be made profit by selling technology patents, processing materials on behalf of others, completing task entrustments, going to shops to help people work, etc. If you have relevant good materials, you can also choose to sell them to get rewards, but it is best to be top-notch. Materials, because it is very difficult to bring physical objects in and out of the supernatural space, and it costs a lot of money. It takes at least 20,000 crystals to move 1 kilogram of physical objects in and out, the clerk explained in a low voice. 20,000 crystals are only 1 kilogram. Galen finally understood why Xylan chose a risky way to transport Mila cells. Can I use universal points to exchange for crystal stones here? Sorry, crystals can be exchanged for universal points, but universal points cannot be exchanged for crystals. The clerk smiled. Do you need any other services? She also saw that the young man in front of her seemed to be a rookie without a mentor at all. Every year, she encountered many such rookies in the superpower market. However, compared to other store employees, she did not discriminate against these rookies. After all, they can't even be considered as skilled mechanics, and they can't do it. What right do they have to discriminate against and despise others? So even if the other party has no intention of purchasing, she is still willing to answer their questions and serve. Haisha, what are you still doing there? There are customers who want you to attend to them, a girl's voice came from the store inside. The clerk in front of Garen immediately turned around and responded. Right away. If you need anything else, you can wait a moment and I'll be back to answer your questions right away. I'm sorry, Haisha smiled apologetically at Garen. It's okay, you go and do your work. Garen also knew that he was penniless now, so it was not bad to let someone explain to him for a long time. Haisha, another shout came from the other side. Haisha bowed to Garen, quickly turned around and ran towards the store. The good service attitude also made Galen have a good impression of this little girl. He walked around the store again, and soon found Mila cells on a counter near the door. Myra cells, cells that are the basic building block of the Energy Master's biochemical pool. They have high corrosion resistance, radiation resistance, 5th level toughness, 5th level hardness, and automatic repair function. The price is 4,999 crystals. This small group of Mila cells looks like a group of gray brain matter, still squirming slightly and glowing with water, and looks a little disgusting. But Galen knew that once this thing was given enough nutrients and organic matter, it could quickly build a pool-sized biochemical pool model in just 1 hour. 5,000 crystals, and if you want to bring out the supernatural space, you need 20,000 crystals. This expense is definitely not something ordinary people can afford. Garen shook his head and walked out of the store. I looked back at the name of the store, Come Back Soon. This name is easy to remember. He walked around the square again and found that an able mechanic walked to the dolphin fountain in the center and stretched out his hand to hold down the dolphin. He didn't know what he was doing. He also walked over, and after an Energy Master let go of his hand, opened his eyes and left, he also stretched out his hand and pressed it on the dolphin. As a cold and smooth touch came out, a pleasant electronic female voice slowly sounded in my heart. Welcome to the teleportation system, please select a teleportation location. A translucent panel suddenly popped up in front of Garen, and it was densely packed with teleportation points. On the panel is a simple planet model of the home planet. There are hundreds of light spots on the surface like stars, showing that these can be teleported. Garen's eyes fell on a light spot, and the corresponding distance, price, name of the light spot, and specialties immediately appeared next to the light spot. The entire mother star rotates slowly, and there are 3 large light spots that are the most eye-catching, like the moon, surrounded by other stars. The first is Magnetic City, located on a large ocean. The second one is the blue sky, it seems that the city itself is also moving. The third one is the capital of Nagateko, which is the brightest of the 3 large light spots. The introduction displayed on the side is the central city of the Mother Star Alliance. Garen just looked at it casually. The worst and cheapest of these teleportation points costs 500 to 600 crystals. The 3 major cities are even more far away, and the teleportation fee actually costs tens of thousands. Everything requires money. Garen left the dolphin and thought silently to exit 3 times. Suddenly, the 7-color halo appeared around him again, as if he had returned to the tunnel he came in an instant. After a moment of slight dizziness, he opened his eyes. He has returned to the missile launch compartment of the thigh part. After moving his body a little, he slowly restrained the naturally emitted cold energy radiation, and at the same time began to control the cold energy to slowly dissipate and accelerate melting. The thigh part, which had a thick layer of ice inside, gradually began to melt rapidly as time went by. As time passed, Garen finally saw the frozen internal openings melting away. He stretched out his hand and pushed, and suddenly the whole person sprang out from the thigh part as silently as a civet cat. Because I don't know what the environment is outside, I take a vigilant posture immediately. But as soon as the thigh part came out, Garen realized something was wrong. On the big bed next to him, a slim and lazy girl was sleeping soundly. The room seemed to be a girl's bedroom. The door and windows were tightly locked with electronic locks. As soon as he jumped out, he landed right next to the girl's bed. The girl's skin was fair and glowed with a faint ivory color in the moonlight. She was posing in a big pose without covering herself with a quilt. She was mumbling something and sleeping soundly. The slender legs would twist from time to time, and the toes would occasionally move. Where is this place? Garen looked away from the girl and glanced around. I walked to the curtain, quietly opened it a little and looked outside. Outside was a wasteland-style building unique to the radiation belt. Gray and black, shabby, but solid, and ferocious, like a beast about to enter its twilight. As soon as he lowered the curtains, he felt a breeze coming from behind him. With a slight backhand, Garen turned sideways to avoid the blow behind him. At the same time, the fingers point on the abdomen of the human body behind. Snapped. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 931. The man who was sneaking behind him bent his waist slightly, but managed to hold back the severe pain and whipped out a sidekick, hitting Garen on the head. Bang! Raising his hands to grab his long legs, Garen saw clearly that the one who attacked him was the young girl who was sleeping soundly just now. At this time, one of her legs was held by Garen's neck, and she was standing with one leg unable to use any strength. However, the girl did not try to cover it up at all. Instead, she had a black dagger in her hand, and she looked at Garen with a fierce look. The waist is augmented and pierced. Let go. Garen's free hand accurately grasped her wrist, twisted it, and took off the dagger. Who are you? The girl stared at Garen with cold eyes, twisting her legs fiercely, trying to close them, but she couldn't. Did you save me? Garen raised his chin at the thigh. Where are you from? The girl was slightly surprised, and then she seemed to notice that there was something wrong with the two people's postures. Does it look good? Her face suddenly turned cold again. This is none of my business. Garen let go of her and took a step back with a smile on his face. The girl put on her pajamas with a cold face to cover her body. Why are you hiding in here? What do you think? Garen found a chair and sat down. Is this a radiation belt? Are you from the domain? The girl understood what he meant. If you are a radiation person, you will not ask whether this is inside or outside the domain, because radiation people are never allowed to enter the domain. My name is Garen. Garen leaned back on the chair. It looks like you're in trouble here. I'm Dongpilan. This is Lion Town, a radiant town near the Black Plate territory in the radiation belt. If you are from the territory, you should have heard of the human hunting tide, right? Dongpilan quickly explained. I don't care who you are, where you come from, or what your background is. Our biggest trouble now is that the hunter is about to attack. If there is no solution, we may all die here. What do you have? Is there any way? If not, I think you should make a contribution to our defender, Karasho. Although the way Galleon appeared was a bit strange, in such a crisis, when faced with ferocious creatures like Manhunter, as long as the creature that came out was not Manhunter, it would become the opponent's target for attack and food, and there would be no way to escape, so she didn't bother to ask Galleon the origin and so on. Anyway, at this time, one more person is more strength. Your mentor is direct. Is there a wave of people hunting? Garen also saw relevant information in the library of the inner courtyard of the academy. If he hadn't been an elite member of the inner court, he wouldn't have been able to see the relevant information on the hunting tide. Human hunters are overmutated deformed humans. In fact, they still look like humans on the surface, but in fact they have broken away from the human category and become another species. Manhunters are very ferocious, and the damage of long-range attacks has a certain effect on them. The hardening of the skin of manhunters will greatly reduce the damage of ray guns and long-range bullet guns. Only close-range blunt weapon attacks and shelling can maximize the damage. Harmful. These are secret materials in the library and are not allowed to be shared outside. Aren't you afraid that I'm a bad guy? Garen looked at the girl in front of him differently. This guy looked very courageous. It doesn't matter whether you are a bad person or a good person, as long as you are still a human being, you will die. When the hunters break through, Dong Pilan began to put on his clothes and got fully armed. Originally, according to the rules, I should have tied you up and monitored and imprisoned you for a period of time, but now there is a serious shortage of manpower. If you don't want to die, we should come out to defend together. Garen smiled. Do you think I'm kidding? Dong Pilan gave him a cold look. Follow me. She quickly opened the door, unlocked it, and walked out. Garen also walked out of the room. Outside was an ordinary iron railing corridor on the second floor. He went down the stairs on the left. In the open space of the town, there were about a dozen middle-aged men who looked a little tired and hadn't woken up. One of them had a gray beard. The old man came over and glanced at Garen. Perrin, who is he? An unlucky guy who was hiding in the Mech's launch chamber and escaping. Dong Pilan explained casually. How is the situation now? Most of the human hunters went to Vulture Town. I tried to contact them over there using wireless signals, but there was no response. I guess. Mei Long said in a low voice. Oh shit. Dong Pilan frowned. If this continues, we will all be surrounded to death. Garen was listening to the discussion between the two, and he noticed that many of the strong men squatting around him seemed to have seen him coming out of Dong Pilan's bedroom, and the expressions on their faces were a little unkind. He didn't take it seriously. His strength didn't recover at all. If Dong Pilan had a consciousness shock, he would have to stop. But it was obvious that this girl didn't seem to know skills such as consciousness shock. After all, this kind of skill is very rare in the domain. Without skills such as consciousness impact, using his skills to deal with these strong men and women who only know a little rough fists and kicks would be a one-sided massacre. Don't you know that human hunters lose their mobility at night? Garen became more and more desperate as he listened to the discussion there, and couldn't help but interject. At night, Dong Pilan was slightly startled. How do you know? Me? After all, I was once a top student. Garen smiled. Let's go and check the situation on the wall above first. Dong Pilan glanced at Mei Long, and the old man nodded to her immediately. Good. The two of them casually greeted the people who were resting, and then led Garen to climb up the more than 10-meter-high black iron wall from the inner wall ladder. Garen originally thought that the human hunt that had just begun to break out would not be a big problem. He could take advantage of the night to buffer and rest, so dealing with the group during the day should not be a big problem. But as soon as he climbed up and looked around in the distance through the infrared telescope, he was immediately stunned. How is it possible that there are so many? His face suddenly darkened. Mei Long and Dong Pilan, who were beside them, also fell to the bottom of their mood. At first, they saw that Jia Long seemed to be from the area. He was well informed and might have some good ideas. This gave the two of them a glimmer of hope. Unexpectedly, now this glimmer of hope seemed to be gone. Garen was also shocked. There were shadows of human hunters everywhere, densely packed, at least hundreds of them. He didn't know if there were any second-level or higher-level human hunters inside. He only has one level of consciousness left now. The consciousness of the weapon master is not used for fighting at all. He can only use fighting force, but this is of no help at all. The defense of the human hunter is not something that he can easily defeat now. He can kill at most a dozen, and the rest will swarm forward. Even he cannot escape death. This is trouble. Putting down the telescope, Garen's face became slightly gloomy. You are from the territory, is there anything you can do? Just trouble means there is still hope. Dongpilan glanced at the side and asked quickly. There is a way. It depends on how long these people hunt before attacking, and how long you can delay it, Garen said lightly. It would be better if he was alone. He could just parasitize a few twisted seeds, and maybe he could still there is a chance to escape, but one of the disadvantages of the twisted seed is that it cannot be controlled. Except for not attacking his mother body, the twisted parasite will attack any other living thing it sees. Until his potential is completely exhausted and his genes collapse. In other words, once he parasitizes the twisted seed, everyone except him may be killed, including Dongpilan who saved him. This is what he doesn't want to see. And if there is a high-level human hunter in the human hunter group, the speed and power defense is far beyond the ordinary level. Even if he releases the twisted seed, he may have little chance of survival. Then what do you think we should do? Dongpilan asked directly. Delay time. I need time. Garen thought of some methods in the records of the Energy Master. If there is a biochemical pool, then he can make cannon fodder, and with the distortion seed, he can create cannon fodder that will not collapse in a short period of time. Cannon fodder for a long time, this may be able to maximize the defensive power. At that time, Ren Xiao's corpse may become new cannon fodder material. How long exactly? Dongpilan asked in a low voice. I don't know, but I'm waiting too. At least we still have a glimmer of hope, right? Garen looked into the distance and whispered. Milong and Dongpilan were silent. Yes, it's better than having no hope at all. I'm going to calm everyone down. She prepared to go down the stairs and leave. The siege of Renyu in the past few days has caused a strong panic in everyone. They don't know how long the siege of Renyu will last, but their food is only enough to last for a week. If they are still surrounded for a week, there will be no even if they could hold on to food, there was no point, they would still starve to death. Mei Long stayed on the high wall, staring at Jia Long. Young man, we are insects on a rope now. No one can escape. Even if we hold on, what about food and drink? What did you eat before? Garen asked. Mutated fish in the radiation lake. Human hunters can also be eaten, Garen said calmly. Mei Long's body trembled slightly, and he felt a faint chill rising from his vest. This cannot be said by someone who has never eaten people. Staring at Garen's back, he suddenly had an intuition that the future of Lion Town would be completely changed with the appearance of this man. Turning around, Mei Long also left. Garen continued to look above for a while, and suddenly heard a panic sound coming from below. Custer's gone. Custer! Someone shouted, and there was chaos below. One of the gates of the wall was opened, and a motorcycle rushed out at high speed. Amidst the roar of the engine, the motorcycle suddenly sprayed blue flames like a mecha from the back. Damn! He dismantled the only power furnace. That's the only power furnace in the processing workshop. Without weapons, you can only wait to die. Custer, I will hum your whole family. Half the drinking water is gone. There's also food, voices kept shouting. Garen watched from a distance as the motorcycle rushed out at high speed, rushing towards the north at full speed, where there were the fewest people. Escapees. If there is a first one, there will be a second one, he murmured. Below, Dongpilan and Mei Long looked at the motorcycle speeding away in the distance through the gun holes in the wall with livid faces. Custer, one of the three leaders of the town, actually escaped himself. He also took away half of the town's food and drink, as well as the only power furnace used to manufacture bullets, process and repair weapons. Without the power furnace, the only automatic production line is useless, Mei Long said solemnly. Dongpilan bit his lip and said nothing, but the nails in his fists almost pierced into his palms. The originally small chance of life seems to have become even smaller with this change. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 932. Boom. Suddenly there was an explosion in the distance. The motorcycle actually flew into the air all of a sudden. At the moment when it rushed towards the crowd of people and hunters, it wanted to fly past them, but was hit hard by an invisible force. With a bang, the entire motorcycle and the people on it were thrown into the air. Blast into pieces, explode directly. I knew it, Garen muttered as he stood on the wall and looked at the flames from a distance. Soon Dongpilan and Mei Long also caught up and saw the flames over there, but they didn't say anything. Just a hint of haze reflected in his pupils. We have been surrounded. Now these human hunters are just waiting for time to digest the people in other places first. We are no different from livestock in captivity, Garen sneered. That guy is still trying to escape. He is simply seeking death. Neither Mei Long nor Dongpilan made a sound, just deathly silence. The people who were still noisy below suddenly fell silent, and everyone knew that Custer's escape was a complete failure. Hope seemed to be suddenly cut off. Even Custer used the mecha power furnace as an engine to drive the motorcycle, and the high speed generated in this way could not escape. This result made them feel relieved, but it also brought chills. Garen turned around and saw that Dongpilan still had no reaction. His expression was dazed, and he sneered. Go down and keep an eye on the people below. Be careful if they give up on themselves and increase their radiation levels. If you want to avoid death and deepen the radiation disease to become a hunter, this method of avoiding death is not the first time. Dongpilan still hasn't completely recovered. Not only was the defection of her deputy for many years a huge shock to her, but also the fact that there was almost no chance of life left her mentally and physically exhausted and completely at a loss. Snapped. Go quickly. Dongpilan finally came to his senses and glared at Garen. You're looking for a fight. You can't beat me anyway, Garen said casually. Dongpilan saw that Jioleng didn't look like he was waiting for death, and he couldn't help but have a thought of living again in his heart. Hurry down and start keeping an eye on the people below. Although the people in Liontown are relatively united, since Custer has set a precedent, there may be a second Custer and a third Custer. Mei Long also took a deep look at Jiolong. Even he couldn't think of a way to escape in such a situation, but what actually showed in this young man's eyes was not the despair of waiting for death, but perseverance. Turning around, he followed Dongpilan down. At this time, even if Garen's origin is unknown, he cannot escape in such a critical situation. It doesn't matter if he has any other ideas. Anyway, he will die if he can't. Apart from trusting Garen, there seems to be no other option. There is no way to find enough explosives to kill them all together. There are no explosives in the town at all. Watching the two people go down, two people soon came up, a man and a woman, both strong and powerful, and stood in front of Garen. Uncle Mei Long asked us to help you. If you have any instructions, just tell me, the man said loudly. Garen nodded. Now only let 1/3 of the people defend up there, and the others go down and have a good rest. There is no way they can survive 2 shifts. He immediately ordered that these 2 people coming up was also the first step for him to initially grasp the power of this town. But even if the whole town is under his control, he won't care. What's the use of a town with at most 30 or 40 people coming? Okay, the man went to send a message to Mei Long to make arrangements. Garen looked at the remaining strong woman. Go and find all the high radiation food left in the town and gather it together. I want to use it. Clear. The woman nodded. I'm ready to report to the leader Dongpilan. I'm going to rest first, and by the way, bring me some food, Garen casually ordered. The woman's expression struggled for a moment, then became a little unsteady. Garen also took one last look into the distance. According to the laws of nature, human hunters would not attack at night, so he felt relieved. The more than 10 people on the wall were enough for defense and investigation. Without being greeted, he directly asked Dong Pilan to arrange a room to rest. After eating a plate of mushy food that looked like mashed potatoes and filling his stomach, he closed the door so that no one could come in and disturb him. He also began to hold the mechanic's key on his body, and his consciousness slowly sank. He could feel that the key was constantly releasing subtle fluctuations, which were constantly shooting towards the top of his head. This seemed to be the function of the black box Xylan mentioned, constantly sending out positioning signals. I don't know how long it will take to get Mila cells, Garen sighed. He didn't want to use the uncontrollable twisted seeds unless necessary. The best way is that the biochemical pool unit itself is controllable, and with the increase of the distortion seed, it may be able to perfectly control the formation of strength. He read the relevant technology in the training method records of the Energy Master, and theoretically calculated can be realized later. It's better to find a cannon fodder mark first, otherwise you won't be able to even make the lowest level cannon fodder. Without a mark, if you want to independently design a cannon fodder creature, it would be a huge project. It would require a large quantum computer to calculate continuously for at least 3 months. This is still the lowest level. The computing power of an energy mechanic is much better than that of a quantum computer in terms of biochemical models. The energy mark is a prepared biochemical biological template. As long as the materials are available, the biochemical pool can be used to continuously process cannon fodder organisms according to the template. No additional calculations are required. The computing power of the energy weapon mark itself is mainly used to assist the energy weapon master in calculating other aspects. For example, the project of calculating the test bench, etc., so the template made in the imprint is equivalent to the mold. Once the materials are mixed and filled in, a cannon fodder can be cultivated, which is very efficient. Moreover, some popular energy weapon marks have been improved and optimized many times by many energy weapon masters. Compared with the new cannon fodder designed by themselves, all aspects have reached a very good level, whether it is material saving, power function, or speed, durability, and structural stability, etc. Therefore, regardless of any energy weapon master, unless he is the kind of energy weapon master who engages in laboratory research all day long in the alliance of energy mechanics, everyone else will buy the energy weapon marks they need and then develop further on this basis. It can be said that every powerful energy mechanic is a biochemist, biologist, and geneticist. That nice mechanical female voice sounded again. Please choose to enter the transaction point. Garen once again entered the rainbow-like cylindrical passage, and in front of him, a translucent panel also appeared, showing the nearest accessible trading points in the surrounding area. Garen saw a clear red dot where he was, and there were a total of 3 dots around him to choose from, 2 of which were brighter, and the last dot was a little dim, as if it would go out at any time. He tried to connect his consciousness to the brightest point. Jasper Workshop. This point is a private space, owned by Hasana Jasper, the Master of Energy. To enter, you need to pay a permission fee of 1 crystal. The female voice explained. Garen looked at himself with a wry smile. He groped around with his hands and soon found the black key. His current assets were clearly displayed on it, and his total assets were 0. You don't have enough crystals, please replenish them before coming back. The electronic female voice sounded again. Garen tried another point, which also required a crystal entry fee. There are currently no free public trading points around. What he actually wants to enter the most is the free public trading points he went to the first 2 times. Unfortunately, the hours of such points are not fixed and will only open randomly every once in a while. Finally he tried the 3rd spot, which was about to fade out. Keek Biochemical Store. This store is a private space, the owner is anonymous and can be entered by everyone, and the fee is free. Fortunately, someone can get in. Garen breathed a sigh of relief. Otherwise, he really doesn't know how to make the energy weapon mark. The energy weapon mark is actually an extremely sophisticated and complex construction of consciousness. It is actually equivalent to using the energy weapon master's consciousness as the main material and adding some other things. Built into a high-intensity precision computer operator. The process of achieving qualitative change. Some people may think that it is just a simple change in consciousness, and there should be no major changes. But the original computer was actually just a combination of metal and various other materials to make components and then assemble them. If there is no structural assembly and construction, the computer is not just a pile of raw materials, and it has no meaning. After selecting the entry point, Garen instantly felt that his body seemed to be accelerating. Soon after flying forward for a certain distance in the colored channel, an exit finally appeared in front of him. The exit with a faint white light was not as dazzling as last time. Just after rushing out, Garen landed lightly on the ground and began to look at the surrounding environment. An empty gray-brown wooden hut seems to be the layout of a store. Dim lights are hung on the walls. The yellow lights shine down, giving people a peaceful and soft feeling. The counter is L-shaped, but not much can be seen behind the glass. The store is the size of a small basketball court, but there are only 3 customers including Garen himself. There is a customer in front who is communicating with a little girl behind the counter, but there seems to be no consensus. The customer shakes his head, turns around and slowly fades away. Obviously completely leaving this point. The little red-haired girl behind the counter tugged on her ponytail, her not-so-pretty face seemed a little frustrated. She was wearing a light brown store clerk's apron outfit. She had a slender figure, seemed to be well developed, and had a slender waist. Another customer seemed to be just looking and had no intention of buying. The whole store gave people a very deserted feeling. Garen walked a few steps over and saw several certificates that seemed to be from competitions hung on the side wall, framed in wooden frames and hung on the wall. There is also a large silver bull head with 2 sharp horns. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 933. That's the gold medal in the silver horn mechanic competition that our store once won. Seemingly seeing Garen's interest in this, the little girl forced a smile and walked over to introduce it. It seemed that she was only 14 or 15 years old, and she was already very tired, but she had to take the initiative to attract customers. Sorry, I'm not here to buy anything. Garen pointed to a job advertisement nearby and said, I am a novice magician, only level 2, and I want to find a job to drill crystal stones. After hearing this, the little girl's energy, which she had worked hard to build up, suddenly dropped. Looking for OEM. We really need OEM. As you can see, everything on the counter is not uniform. We sell energy machine marks and auxiliary materials. Many things need to be processed by ourselves after purchasing. Especially the fine processing of materials. The energy weapon mark also needs someone to perform fine-tuning and inspection, and the shop is also very short of people. But the wages are a bit low. How much? Garen nodded. How about 200 crystals a week? The little girl asked carefully. Garen didn't know the market at all, he just looked at the little girl and frowned. Are you in charge here? Yes, this is my store. The little girl nodded. In fact, in the general market, there are quite a lot of things that a second-level energy mechanic can do. The price of 200 crystals per week is already considered very low. The normal price is 400 crystals per week. But this store is almost unsustainable. Even this ancestral spot can hardly be maintained, and the annual maintenance fees can hardly be paid. If we don't work hard, I'm afraid it won't be long before this point's position in the supernatural space will be completely cancelled. My name is Xylan. This store is under my grandfather's name. He is sick now. Only my senior brother and senior sister are taking care of the business together, the little girl said briefly. Garen nodded, but what he needs most now is the energy weapon mark. Everything else is not the focus, and the cheapest energy weapon mark is very expensive. It was something he couldn't afford at all. I can agree, but I'm encountering something now. I urgently need an energy weapon mark. I wonder if you can advance an energy weapon mark to me in advance. The lowest level one will do. He had no choice now. Human hunters may attack the town where he is at any time. If he does not improve his defense capabilities quickly, no matter how strong he is, he will die if he encounters an endless sea of human hunters. Advance payment. The little girl was stunned for a moment. I have to go back and ask about this. But if you agree, after signing the contract, you must come over 1 week to complete a fixed minimum share of the task OEM. Otherwise, you will be identified by the superpower space. If you break the law, you may lose the qualification to enter the supernatural space again, so you have to think clearly. That's right, no problem, Garen nodded. He has no choice now. He is penniless and cannot go to other shops. Maybe the conditions here are not good, but this is his only choice. There are 2 other shops where the wages may be higher, but he can't get in at all. Watching the little girl turn around and go back into the store, Garen wandered around the store casually. There were really not many things on the counter. There were only 5 or 6 types of weapon marks, all of which were aquatic and ground types. There were no more popular aerial or underground marks. Cannon fodder in the air and underground cannon fodder are relatively good energy marks, such as color-changing bats, which can invade over long distances and have strong concealment and durability. Because they can remain in a color-changing stealth state for a long time without consuming much energy, they are better than generally. The mark should have good lasting power. Another example is underground earthworms, which can go deep into the ground to find hidden underground bases. They are very popular in some special environments, are highly concealed, and contain certain toxins. These are very good peripheral cannon fodder. But there are none here. There are just ordinary wild wolves, saber-toothed tigers, cannon fodder creatures that are large in size, short in duration, and average in power. Of course, a wild wolf and a saber-toothed tiger are definitely more capable in frontal combat than the average color-changing bat, but in this technological age, no matter how strong your body is, if you lack the ability to dodge, you will be defeated in one shot. Therefore, ordinary medium-sized and large biological systems are the lowest priced energy mark. The energy mark emphasizes being faster, more accurate, and more powerful. Garen scanned it, only to see wild wolves, saber-toothed tigers, and the others were cannon fodder for the aquatic tribe. This place was thousands of miles away from the sea, so it was natural that these marks could not be sold. Shaking his head, he also heard footsteps coming from inside. Looking up, he saw the little girl Xiaolan walking out, followed by a tall and thin young man. The man was wearing a white apron, and his hands were covered with wire gloves, which were stained with oil. His face was also a little tired, and he looked very tired. He was only in his 20s, about the same age as Garen. "Hello, I am the disciple of the boss here, Mingjia. Do you want to join our store as an OEM?" The man came over, opened the small door of the counter, and came to Jialong. "Yes, it's me," Garen nodded. "So what can you do? Do you have any experience as a helper before?" the man asked with a hint of expectation. "Although the salary is so low, I'm sorry to ask this, but this is also to allow you to get into work quickly." Was the question that asked Garen. He had never even entered the supernatural space a few times, let alone any work he had done before. "To be honest, I am a new energy weapon master. I don't even have an energy weapon mark, let alone any helper work." He answered frankly that it was difficult to cover up a situation like this, so he might as well be direct. Newcomer, a trace of disappointment flashed across the man's face, but he nodded with understanding. I understand that if there are skilled mechanics with work experience, they probably won't come to work with us so easily. He paused, then do you think this arrangement is okay? Only me and my other junior sisters are working in our store now, and Xylan is in charge of sales. However, we are only good at processing biochemical imprints from the sea and the ground, and in other aspects not at all. I am currently trying to process the marks of air units. The ground mark processing that I was originally responsible for will allocate part of the workload to you. You can complete one in a week. Is that okay? 1. Garen nodded. The cheapest mark cost several thousand crystals, which was not something he could afford. Completing a ground mark in a week didn't sound like a difficult task. I haven't tried it. Can you let me try it first? That's fine. The two of them took Garen into the shop inside and entered another room similar to a studio. There are some floating objects like spheres placed inside. The silver spheres are suspended one by one in the air. There are more than a dozen of different sizes, and the contents inside can be seen through the appearance of each one. Each ball inside is like a gestating embryo. Inside is a group of constantly rotating colorful whirlpools. There seems to be a colorful Milky Way in it, which is extremely gorgeous and beautiful. Mingjia pointed at the largest sphere and introduced. This is the energy mark that is being processed and cultivated. It is the mark of a liger. The smaller the mark, the more functions, the stronger the power, and the more complex the calculations involved. The birth ball requires the energy engineer to pay attention to it at all times. The data changes, guiding and weaving the gene chains we need at key steps. And injecting our consciousness, the final imprint will record all the processes in the gestation ball. He patted the big ball and smiled bitterly. Of course, in this gestation process, the fewer mistakes you can make, the more perfect it is, because every time you make a mistake, even if it is corrected later, the gestated energy mark will also make the same mistake when it creates cannon fodder in the biochemical pool. This it will waste time and materials. If you waste it like this every time, then the quality of the entire mark will be reduced. That's true. Garen nodded in understanding. The general standard is that no more than 5 mistakes can be made, or the waste rate cannot exceed 10%, Mingjia said simply. All our operations when operating the nurturing ball will be recorded by the mechanical imprint. The smoother it is, the more perfect the final imprint will be and the less loss it will have. We are like burning a sequence of programs on the imprint, and these procedures are irreversible. If you make a mistake, you can only make up for it, not change it. Therefore, every mistake directly determines the quality of the final mark. This is the creation of energy mark. The little girl Xylan next to her also nodded. So making energy weapon marks usually requires one person to specialize in one category. Cross-domain operations are just seeking death. Except for old monsters who have too much time to spend, don't think about others. You guy. Mingjia shook his head with a wry smile. You think I do? After hearing this, Garen understood very well. They are like burning a disc, and those who buy the imprint are like playing the disc. Every time they create cannon fodder and breed biochemical pool cannon fodder, it is like playing a disc. The more errors and omissions on the disc, it will even affect whether the playback is successful, whether there is a freeze in the middle, whether the picture is clear or not, whether it takes time, etc. As long as you understand. Mingjia nodded. If you agree, you can sign an agreement here, and we can agree to advance you an energy weapon mark. After all, we will do this even if you don't say it, because there is no energy weapon. The efficiency of the mark's energy weapon master is indeed very low, which is not what we want. As for the type of energy weapon mark, you can choose it yourself. Anyway, you can get any in the store, and there are no good ones. The price will be recorded directly and it will be deducted from your salary slowly. Good. Garen nodded with satisfaction. When will work begin? Tomorrow. Today you choose the mark first and get familiar with using it. Tomorrow I will teach you how to operate and control the nurturing ball Mingjia ordered. How long do you plan to work? Let's take a month first. Then I'll make an agreement. Okay, Garen agreed and took the agreement sheet that quickly appeared in Mingjia's hand. After scanning it, he made sure there was no trap and quickly signed his name. Clang. With a soft sound, the agreement burned naturally and turned into black ashes in Garen's hands. This means that the agreement has come into effect. Mingjia nodded. Xiaolan, please go and help him choose a mark. The price will be calculated based on the cost price. Understood. The little girl Xiaolan also had a smile on her face. She tugged on her long red ponytail and turned around to give Garen a friendly smile. How should I call you? Garen smiled. Just call me Garen. It's really amazing, brother Garen. You have become a second-level energy weapon master at such a young age. Your teacher must be a very knowledgeable energy weapon master, right? Xiaolan led Garen out of the processing room and returned to the outside of the shop. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 934. I didn't have a teacher. I taught myself everything, and it took me 6 years. Garen used his old tricks again. Self-study. Is this possible? Xiaolan suddenly opened her eyes in surprise. I have tried many times but can't do it. Now I can't even pass level 1. She became frustrated. It's been 7 years. My grandfather has been teaching me since I was little. Garen didn't know what to say. The two of them walked slowly along the counter. Brother Jialong, you can choose what you like. Our store's business has been getting worse and worse since my grandfather fell ill. After relying on the previous inventory to sell out, senior brother and senior sister had to make some bad quality marks and sell them by themselves. Struggling to support the store. She whispered. At this time, there was no one in the store. The last customer who was watching and playing had also left. The dim and soft light seemed more and more silent, and only Xiaolan's voice echoed slightly. Garen nodded silently. While listening to Xiaolan's introduction, he glanced at the few energy weapon marks on the counter. All the mark bodies use the basic first-level mark as the main body. The senior brothers and sisters are all third-level energy weapon masters. They have insufficient computing power and cannot process the second-level energy weapon mark. The tender weapon mark is divided into 2 parts, the calculation part and the production part. The computing part is the main body and must be purchased from the alliance. This is the part responsible for calculation and increasing the computing power of the energy mechanic. The production part is what you just saw, the part responsible for controlling and guiding the biochemical pool to produce cannon fodder. We are responsible for processing. That's the second piece Xiaolan introduced, walking forward slowly. In other words, we purchase semi-finished products and then process them into finished products for sale, right? Galen asked. That's right. However, all the first-level imprinting bodies are similar, and the computing power is increased 3 times. The key lies in the production part module given by the second piece of processing like ours. If an ordinary imprinting body is processed by an expert, for good production modules, such as powerful cannon fodder like Devil Bug, the price will suddenly change dramatically, Xiaolan said with some envy. That's it. Garen nodded understandingly. Although he didn't want to decide his first mark so hastily, he had no choice. The situation was critical now and he couldn't wait for him to choose carefully. His eyes swept across the counter and landed directly on the wild wolf. That's it? Mark of the wild wolf. He pointed at the energy mark on the counter. Are you sure it's him? Xiaolan asked. Well, it's him. Garen nodded. The wild wolf is fast, has sharp claws, and has night vision, but its defense is not good. This mark is the proud work of senior brother. I will give you the best one. The waste rate is only 5%. It is the most proud work of senior brother. Works. Xylan quickly took out a soft gray stuff with a shimmering color from a small cabinet under the counter. All the energy marks are like marshmallows of different colors, soft and shapeless. Are all energy marks like this? Garen asked curiously. Of course not. This is only a first-level energy weapon mark. Generally, a first-level energy weapon master can use it. There are also energy weapon marks used by second-level energy weapon masters, third level, fourth level and fifth level. You will have them later. If you have enough money, you can install a second energy mark on yourself when you reach level 3. Remember, it is very difficult to change this thing once it is installed. It is like a primitive cell. You have spawned it into a piece. Beef, if you want to change it into beef bones later, it will be very difficult, Xylan warned. I understand, Garen nodded. It seems like you really don't know anything. Xylan shook her finger and said, okay, this is for you. She handed the seal over and placed it in Garen's raised hand. Eat it. It will be very painful when you go back to transform. Just bear with it. It usually lasts for an hour. Please pay attention to safety. This is the time when the Energy Master is most vulnerable. No matter how powerful the Energy Master is, the same one. New. Garen nodded solemnly. After a blur of distorted colors, Garen suddenly returned to his room. He raised his hand and saw that he was holding a ball of gray and shimmering cotton in his hand. Is this the mark of the wild wolf? He stuffed it directly into his mouth without hesitation. What's very strange is that as soon as the thing touches the mouth, it goes straight in with a swish. Like a living thing, it quickly slides down the throat like liquid. It is as cold as eating a bowl of ice water. Garen barely swallowed when he felt his stomach churn. The consciousness behind his head slowly shook, as if something cold was emitting many silk tentacles, slowly wrapping around the 2 marks on the back of his head. After coaxing him, a huge shock suddenly rushed into his brain, and then Garen felt a cramp in his stomach, as if he was overturned, and his throat felt like he wanted to vomit. I felt nauseous, started to hiccup, and kept spitting out streams of foul-smelling gas. White spots seemed to begin to appear in front of his eyes. It seemed as if someone was pressing on the surface of his eyes with fingers, and he saw many white spots spreading out. He stooped, reluctantly walked to the single sofa in the room, sat down, and took a deep breath. Although such nausea and pain were unbearable, it was nothing to Garen. The pain when he had remodeled his heart was much more intense than this. After a little adaptation, he could still remain calm and move around freely, but there was a faint sweat on his forehead, indicating that his condition was not perfect at this time. After getting used to the severe pain, Garen walked to the window. The sky was already getting brighter, and it seemed to be early morning. A strange howl like a wolf could be heard faintly in the distance outside. There was no way there were wolves in the surrounding terrain, and those that had been killed by people had long been strangled by radiation. The only possibility was that they were hunted by humans. It's about to start, Garen murmured, looking at the white fish belly in the sky in the distance, hoping that everything would be safe. Even though he was in the room, he could feel the tremendous pressure from the people walking around outside. Anxiety, restlessness, the kind of depression that forces oneself to calm down. This is the thorough performance of the 30 or 40 people in Lion Town. Through the window, Garen saw someone holding a sharp metal spear and waving it around, and someone was rubbing their hands constantly, sitting on the doorstep with his head lowered and muttering something unknown. Whining sounds came from outside, but no one looked up. The whole town became quieter and quieter, no one spoke, and occasionally the cry of a baby could be heard. But even children as young as a few years old are earnestly helping to do what they can. Adults, on the other hand, are constantly adjusting their physical condition to keep themselves at their peak at all times. Lowering the curtains, Garen knew there was nothing he could do now. The mark of the wild wolf seems to be transforming the 2 consciousness marks on the back of his head. This transformation is very rapid and precise. In many cases, some subtle substances will be extracted from his body to participate in the transformation. This is also the key reason why the human body feels severe pain. Garin looked up and looked at the time, 6:21. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, crisply, and rhythmically. He sat down, slowly relaxed his body, and carefully felt the transformation of this consciousness imprint, but unfortunately, this transformation was very fast, and the level of sophistication was far beyond his imagination. After just a few minutes of observation, he felt that his consciousness was a little blurry and his energy was too much. It can only be taken back. Sitting quietly on the sofa cushion under my butt was somewhat soft and pliable. The surface was made of leather, and there seemed to be metal springs inside. It bounced when I sat down. Time passed by minute. It's getting brighter outside. Someone started to greet the staff standing guard on the wall to prepare for a shift change. 3 rounds and 1 change, this was what Galen had arranged previously. The footsteps of the people changing the guard passing by the room were sparse and the people coming down took deep breaths. No one spoke, only the sound of heavy breathing. Garin looked up and looked at the time again, 6:44. 23 minutes have passed. The severe pain in the body continued and became more severe. He endured it and sat quietly on the sofa, waiting for everything to pass. 6:51. There was a slight noise outside, and gunshots were fired. Rapid footsteps passed outside the room, as if someone was running towards the wall. "It's okay, it's just that a few lone human hunters rushed over and were killed," a voice said. Then all was quiet again. 6:59. There was a knock on the door, and Dong Pilan's voice came from outside. "Are you there? It will be dawn soon." Don't worry, Garin sat on the sofa with his eyes closed, sweat flowing from his forehead to the edge of his cheeks, and soon dripping on his clothes along his chin. The clothes he was wearing were still the plain clothes he wore when he was in the territory. They were stained with blood, organic oil, and black and gray. The whole clothes looked like a painter's overalls. Apart from the long sleeves and trousers, there was almost no pattern or color. Just a big piece of flowers. After hearing Garin's answer, Dong Pilan was silent for a moment and left again. 7:12. Gunshots were heard outside again. This time it was not an ordinary gunshot, but a large clutter of noise. The chaos was mixed with curses, and occasionally someone could be heard screaming. "It's really started." Garin opened his eyes, but now he could do nothing but move freely. Bang bang bang. Dong Pilan knocked on the door again. "A group of human hunters have already come outside, but we repelled them. I suspect they were just a test. Several brothers died. Help me prepare some basic materials." Garin raised his voice and said, "The root of the people leaf, asparagus grass, the higher the radiation, the better, more than 20 grams each. The blood and brain of the radiation beast, the level is higher. The better. No need to use ordinary ones, the more the better. There are also grave trunks and winter fragrant flowers." He casually reported a series of things, which were all relatively common materials in the radiation belt. These things are more or less radioactive. Many of them are used as substitutes for nutrient solutions in biochemical pools. There is currently no way to do this with galleons. Although these substitutes will be less effective and may affect the strength of the final creature, there is no other way now. Let's get some out first and then talk.